Chapter 1: The Invisible Driver. Understanding the hidden mind. What if most of your decisions are made before you even realize it? Your conscious mind is only the tip of the iceberg. Your brain processes 11 million bits of sensory data per second, yet consciousness handles just 40 bits. That means the vast majority of your experiences, emotions, and decisions are filtered and directed by hidden neural systems. Meet the unconscious mind, the engine running beneath awareness. It predicts outcomes, shapes emotional responses, and silently guides your behavior. The default mode network builds your sense of self. The limbic system processes threats and rewards. The basal ganglia automates behaviors, from typing on a keyboard to forming social habits. Even when you think you're making a rational choice, the brain has already predicted the outcome. Every voluntary decision is partially scripted by unseen forces. Example: in 1983, Benjamin Libet's experiments showed that the brain's motor cortex activates up to 300 milliseconds before a conscious decision to move. Your mind is essentially telling a story after the fact, creating the illusion of free choice. Imagine watching a character in a thriller, thinking they are in control, lonely to reveal that every move, every decision, has been quietly guided by forces they cannot see. That is your mind every day. Chapter 2: The Pattern Machine. How your brain predicts reality. Your brain doesn't just react to the world, it invents it. The unconscious mind constantly predicts reality using past experiences, heuristics, and emotional templates. This predictive processing allows you to react swiftly, but sometimes it misleads perception, shaping illusions as if they were truth. Example: when a stranger walks toward you with a neutral expression, your amygdala may trigger a subtle threat response before conscious awareness, depending on past experiences. You think they look hostile, but your brain is simply predicting danger based on prior patterns. Real-world experiment. In 2015, researchers at MIT demonstrated that the brain predicts visual outcomes even when the stimulus is partially hidden. Subjects saw objects that weren't fully visible, a clear example of the mind filling gaps with expectation. The basal ganglia store emotional and behavioral habits. Repeated experiences create automatic scripts, explaining why people may repeat toxic relationship patterns or return to unhealthy routines, even when consciously aware of the consequences. The brain seeks familiarity, even if it hurts. Our pattern recognition system evolved to protect us, but it also explains unconscious biases, implicit judgments about others, social dynamics, or danger occur within milliseconds before reasoning can intervene. Your intuition is powerful, but sometimes it's just your brain's prediction engine acting on ancient scripts. Suppressing emotions doesn't erase them, it stores them deep within the brain, hidden from conscious awareness, but powerful enough to direct behavior. When emotions like fear, anger, or shame are repressed, the prefrontal cortex attempts to inhibit the amygdala. But these feelings remain encoded in neural pathways, influencing decisions, judgments, and physical responses without notice. Emotional repression manifests in everyday life in subtle ways. A fleeting irritation, a sense of unease in social situations, or automatic withdrawal from intimate moments. Chronic suppression is linked to psychosomatic symptoms, such as tension headaches, digestive issues, and sleep disturbances, as the nervous system reacts to unresolved emotional energy. The brain treats these unresolved patterns like a silent warning system, ready to trigger defensive responses at unexpected moments. Experiments like Daniel Wegner's White Bear study reveal that attempting to suppress specific thoughts often strengthens their recurrence, illustrating that the unconscious mind cannot be forced into silence. Similarly, fMRI studies show that repressed emotional content continues to activate the amygdala and limbic structures, even without conscious awareness. This explains why people sometimes react disproportionately to seemingly minor triggers. Their unconscious is replaying unresolved past experiences. For example, a person who experienced criticism or neglect in childhood may unconsciously seek situations that recreate similar stress, repeating patterns of tension, anxiety, or disappointment in adult relationships. These patterns are reinforced by neural circuitry that favors familiarity over conscious logic, demonstrating that emotional ghosts quietly orchestrate behavior. Awareness of these dynamics is the first step toward breaking the cycle, as observing and acknowledging suppressed emotions allows the brain to reorganize its responses and reduce automatic reactivity. Chapter 4: Hidden Desires. When the brain chooses before you, the human brain is wired to pursue reward and avoid discomfort, often without conscious guidance. The dopaminergic system, particularly the ventral tegmental area and nucleus accumbens, reinforces patterns of desire by releasing dopamine in anticipation of reward, not just after achieving it. This predictive mechanism shapes unconscious preferences, motivations, and attachments, sometimes leading individuals toward choices they consciously reject. Consider the phenomenon of trauma bonding. Individuals raised with inconsistent or unpredictable affection often find themselves drawn to emotionally unavailable partners. The brain equates unpredictability with significance, intertwining pleasure and stress into a potent emotional cocktail that is difficult to resist. Functional MRI studies show simultaneous activation of reward circuits and stress responses during these interactions, explaining why harmful relationships can feel compelling and addictive. Beyond attachment, hidden desires govern everyday behaviors. Habitual patterns ranging from compulsive social media scrolling to overeating are reinforced by dopamine-driven anticipation of reward. Even choices we rationally reject are influenced by unconscious expectation and memory. The brain prioritizes emotional pattern recognition over moral reasoning, meaning that unconscious desires often outpace conscious intentions. Understanding hidden desires requires observing repeated behaviors, tracking emotional triggers, and recognizing the interplay between past experiences and present choices. By identifying the patterns that drive unconscious motivation, individuals can begin to restructure behaviors, redirecting energy toward healthier outcomes without suppressing natural drives. Have you ever felt intensely irritated by someone for no good reason? Or maybe you've overreacted to a small criticism, feeling like it was a personal attack. Well, what if I told you that what you're seeing in others is actually a reflection of yourself? This is a psychological phenomenon called projection. It's how our unconscious mind deals with things we don't like about ourselves, our fears, our self-doubt, our hidden desires. Instead of facing them, we push them outside and pin them on other people. Brain scans even show that the same parts of our brain light up when we're rethinking about ourselves and when we're re-projecting onto others. That's why these feelings seem so real and valid. Think about it. That coworker who seems so controlling. Maybe it's tapping into your own desire for control. That person you find incredibly arrogant. It could be reflecting your own suppressed ambition. The famous psychologist Carl Jung called these hidden parts of ourselves the shadow. The good news is, every time you have a strong, seemingly irrational reaction to someone, it's an opportunity. It's a clue from your unconscious mind, pointing to something you need to understand about yourself. By paying attention to these emotional triggers, you can start to see your own shadow. Recognizing our projections isn't about blaming ourselves. It's about reclaiming our power. When we integrate these hidden parts, we stop being controlled by automatic reactions and start making conscious choices. We build emotional intelligence and form healthier, more authentic relationships. So next time you feel that intense emotion toward someone, pause and ask, what is this really telling me about myself? Thanks for watching. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights into the human mind. Chapter 6. Emotional Memory. When the past controls the present, emotional experiences from early life are deeply encoded in the brain, shaping responses decades later. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline strengthen memory consolidation in the amygdala, making emotionally charged events more durable than neutral ones. Even when consciously forgotten, these experiences guide perception, attention, and decision-making. For example, a minor criticism in adulthood can trigger intense anxiety if it resonates with unresolved childhood experiences. Studies using fMRI show amygdala activation during subtle reminders of early stress, even when subjects do not consciously recall the original event. The brain is essentially replaying patterns from the past, influencing reactions automatically. These emotional memories create predictive templates, allowing the unconscious to respond rapidly to perceived threats or rewards. While adaptive for survival, these templates sometimes cause overreactions, phobias, or compulsive behaviors. Adults may unknowingly repeat patterns of attachment, aggression, or avoidance learned in childhood. Understanding emotional memory requires observation and reflection. Techniques such as journaling, guided imagery, or therapy uncover hidden emotional triggers. Once identified, repeated conscious engagement can reshape neural circuits, reducing the automatic power of past experiences. Emotional memory is not destiny. It can be transformed into insight and conscious control. Chapter 7. The Inner Narrator. How your brain tells stories. The brain is a natural storyteller. The left hemisphere, sometimes called the interpreter, constructs narratives to explain behavior and emotional states. Often, these narratives are fabricated after the fact, giving the illusion of conscious control. Split brain experiments illustrate this vividly. When one hemisphere acts without awareness of the other, the conscious interpreter confidently generates reasons for decisions it never initiated. This shows that the brain values coherence over accuracy, creating stories to maintain internal consistency. In everyday life, the inner narrator justifies choices, interprets social cues, and rationalizes emotions. While useful for decision-making, it can distort reality, obscuring unconscious influences. For instance, someone may attribute a decision to rational thought, when in fact it was triggered by habit, desire, or suppressed emotion. Recognizing the role of the interpreter allows for greater by questioning internal narratives, observing patterns of thought, and tracking unconscious influences. One can distinguish between genuine conscious choices and stories crafted by the mind. Chapter 8: Self-Discovery Tools. Mapping your hidden mind. Exploring the hidden mind requires more than casual reflection. It demands structured approaches to bring unconscious patterns into awareness. Techniques such as meditation, journaling, dream analysis, and free association serve as bridges between conscious thought and unconscious drives, revealing motives, fears, and suppressed desires that shape behavior. Meditation strengthens connections between the prefrontal cortex and limbic system, allowing for better emotional regulation and reducing automatic stress reactions. Mindfulness practices train the brain to observe thoughts and feelings without judgment, creating a mental space where unconscious patterns become visible. This allows individuals to notice habitual reactions, compulsive behaviors, and recurring emotional triggers before they escalate into automatic responses. Journaling uncovers recurrent thought patterns, emotional cycles, and behavioral tendencies that were previously unnoticed. By recording daily experiences and reflecting on reactions, one begins to see the interplay between unconscious motives and conscious decisions. For example, a person may notice that certain conflicts arise repeatedly with co-workers or partners, uncovering a hidden pattern rooted in past trauma or fear of rejection. Dream analysis, particularly during REM sleep, reveals symbolic representations of suppressed fears, desires, and unresolved conflicts. Studies show that dreams activate both emotional and memory processing regions, providing a rich map of the hidden mind. Interpreting these symbols helps translate unconscious content into actionable insight, allowing conscious decision-making to override automatic scripts. Neuroscience confirms that repeated self-reflection reshapes neural circuits. Automatic responses that were once uncontrollable can be transformed into deliberate, conscious behaviors. Mapping triggers, habitual reactions, and shadow aspects creates a practical blueprint for self-mastery, enabling individuals to act intentionally rather than being driven by unconscious forces. By systematically exploring the unconscious, people gain insight into why emotions arise, why certain desires persist, and why patterns repeat, unlocking the potential for true personal growth and autonomy. Chapter 9: Rewriting the Script. Practical hacks. Awareness of the unconscious is only the first step. To truly gain control, individuals must engage in deliberate interventions that reshape behavior and neural pathways. Practical techniques include trigger tracking, identifying people, situations, or events that provoke strong emotional reactions, uncovering hidden patterns that drive automatic responses. Cognitive reframing, challenging automatic interpretations and exploring alternative perspectives to shift emotional meaning and reduce unconscious influence. Exposure to discomfort. Facing previously avoided emotions gradually diminishes their unconscious grip, retraining the brain to respond calmly and consciously. Structured reflection, journaling, therapy, or guided exercises consolidate awareness and reinforce new behavioral patterns. Neuroplasticity ensures that consistent application of these techniques can reconfigure neural circuits, transforming habitual unconscious responses into conscious, deliberate actions. For example, someone with a lifelong fear of criticism can, over time, reduce amygdala hyperactivity by gradually exposing themselves to constructive feedback, transforming automatic anxiety into measured reflection. Behavioral application extends across life domains, interpersonal relationships, professional challenges, and personal health. By intentionally rewriting internal scripts, individuals transition from reactive to proactive behavior. They gain the ability to respond to stress, temptation, or conflict with awareness rather than reflex, turning previously destructive unconscious patterns into sources of personal strength and resilience. Chapter 10: Mastering the Hidden Mind. The ultimate goal is integration and mastery. The unconscious mind will always influence behavior, but by recognizing, understanding, and harnessing its mechanisms, individuals can transform hidden patterns into tools for growth. Mastery involves observing triggers, identifying projections, and consciously choosing responses to impulses that once felt automatic. Integrating the hidden mind strengthens emotional intelligence, creativity, and decision-making. Understanding shadow traits and unconscious motivations allows for more authentic interactions and prevents repeated patterns of self-sabotage. For example, recognizing the source of anger toward a partner as a projection of one's own fear or insecurity shifts the response from reactive to constructive. Scientific studies in neuroplasticity demonstrate that intentional, repeated engagement with unconscious patterns modifies neural activity, creating lasting behavioral change. By mapping triggers, monitoring emotional responses, and practicing reflection and mindfulness, the brain learns new pathways, replacing automatic reactions with conscious, adaptive choices. The hidden mind is both a repository of unresolved trauma and a source of untapped potential. Mastery does not erase the unconscious. It transforms its influence into guidance rather than control, allowing conscious action to shape life outcomes. Individuals who achieve this level of integration experience greater autonomy, resilience, and freedom. turning what was once invisible and uncontrollable into a foundation for purposeful, empowered living.